Hello and welcome to Howard's Cave of Wonder. I'm Chris, aka Howard Blues, welcoming you back down here to my Cave of Wonder. And tonight, doing something just fairly simple, fairly easy, and that is just a very quick tutorial. And I mean quick. This is me. Things never go as quickly as I ever think. But a quick tutorial on painting stone. I've kind of been going through this tutorial phase here. I've done shaded metallics, I did rust, and now I'm painting stone. Why? Because I think it's a fairly easy thing, and also I get to address then something that really bugs me about how people paint stone. That's right. And that is, when it comes to painting rock, when it comes to painting stone, everybody goes with gray. That's right. We get so many gray rocks. And the interesting thing about it is, and I grew up, both of my parents are geological engineers, so I grew up with parents who introduced me to the wonder that is rocks. You know, as a kid, it was great. I could pick up a rock. I could go, Mom, Dad, what is this? A lot of times I was told it was leverite, as in leave it right there. But the interesting thing is that if you really do, if you do a Google search for rocks, or just, hey, go outside, take a look at rock, and they can be incredibly colorful. And yet, for some reason, we as painters, I think a lot of times it's because it's a base piece. We think, oh, gray. Rock is gray. That is what color we paint rock. And so I like to change things up, and I like to make things interesting. And we're going to do just that. Tonight, to kind of help me with this demonstration, I have this guy. This is Reaper Miniatures Stone Golem. And this is the classic, like, first edition Bones Stone Golem. I do have kind of the later version that they did, which is actually, like, taller and bigger. But I figured for this guy, he's a classic Bones figure. It will work out just fine. And I'm going to try and add some variation to him to make it, even though he's a stone golem, to make him interesting. Hi, Future Howard, cutting in as I'm doing some editing here. I wanted to clarify this point a little bit, because I make this point about everybody paints gray rocks and then proceed to paint a stone golem as gray rocks. The point that I was trying to make, so when you look at a lot of models that people do, just take like Games Workshop and you look at all their Tacta rocks, the vast majority of them are gray, and I mean only gray. We're talking, your base, your mid-tone, your highlight, it's all in that shades of gray, and we don't ever really venture out, unless maybe it's like, oh, this model's on a desert base, and then you know what, they're all tan. And so I just wanted people to think about that you can get in with rocks and do all of these interesting colors, because rocks are interesting colors. You get different mosses and lichens and such that grow on them, and because of that, people should, I already do, and that's not to say I am better than that, but I think people should consider when they're painting their rocks to maybe go a little crazy, add some color, add some, different shades that maybe you wouldn't normally do, because you can get some really cool results. And you'll see that as I proceed to paint this. But I just want to clarify that, because as I'm sitting here watching it in the editing process, I'm like, man, that did not come across well. That's the dangers of doing these things without a script and just winging it. So with that, I'm gonna get back to editing. Enjoy the rest of the video. Let's dive in, let's get started, let's paint some rock. And to do that, we're going to start with a dark color. I'm not even going to try and pronounce this. It's Schwarzenwald gray. So it's really just a dark gray. And the other thing I will say as I give this a quick shake, one thing I would also encourage you to do, and it's something else that I tend to do, and that is when I start painting a miniature, I will usually paint the base first. That's right. There's a reason for that, and that's because I believe that as you continue to paint on these figures, you're going to get a little slop, right? Especially when you're doing like the boots, or maybe you do a technique that's a little messy, and some of that's going to get into your rock, or your ground, or your dirt. And that's okay, even if it's a weird color that you weren't meaning to do. But here's the thing. If I start with my base, and then I let the weird colors kind of mix in, then when I go to fix it and paint it the way I want it to look, I now have color variation. I have this like interesting underpainting that's going to affect whatever color I put on in very different ways. And that's why on some of them, like my druid guy here, if you can see his base, there's some green on there, there's some brown on there. I just let that stuff happen because it will help me make more interesting base. So I've taken my gray, add a little bit of water. I'm just going to get a big brush because my whole thing is I am going to just coat everywhere on this guy. And he's already been primed black. I saved you that step. So started with a prime black, and we're just going to slather this on. And much like some of the other ones I've been doing in these kind of tutorial sense, don't worry quite so much about, gosh, I got to get this perfect and get a perfect coat. The only spot I'm really worried about is I have some areas down here on his leg where clearly after priming it, I discovered I had missed some mold lines or seam lines and came back in and cut them. Also, this guy has been floating around in a box for a while because he was one of those that I primed for the next time I could get a chance to paint. And so some of that paint has been chipped off or worn off as he's been shaking around. So yeah, just kind of getting him nice, coated. Don't forget the top of the helmet, crown. And there we go. We're going to let that start to dry. But I'm not planning on him being all gray because, again, rocks can be colorful. So I want to have some fun with this. And I think for his head and for his little skirt thing, I'm going to make that red, a red rock. And so I'm going to actually take this color, which is unfortunately is a sample paint, but it is a reddish brown color. A similar one, if you wanted something that actually had a name to it that I could also use, is from Vallejo's model color line. It is their red leather. Something along those lines would work as well. As you can see, they're pretty close. Oops, if I have both on it, they're pretty close. This one, the sample has a little bit more of kind of a reddy orange color to it. But this Vallejo red leather would also work as well. So I'm grabbing this one. I used this one in the Rust tutorial that I did. And as you can see, because of how I did this, my brush, I mean, my gray is drying on there, but not too fast, so there's still some spots that are a little wet. That's okay. Little mixing, little wet blending, as some would say. So let's zoom up here. Again, still kind of using my big brush. I'm going to come in on his skirt Like I said, it's really probably not a skirt. As my buddy JS would maybe call it, we'll call it a tactikilt. So just letting this kind of come in, cover up that gray. The nice thing about kind of covering over the gray is it will bring it down a little bit. But again, I'm not looking for perfection. Rock is not smooth in that sense, right? Rock has variation in texture. I got a little on his leg, not a big deal. So I'm going to paint that color. I'm also going to come in and I want to do kind of his bracelets because why not? Get that color. Get some color variation into him. Again, at this point, with how I'm doing this, I'm not worried about clean. So I'm going to come up and do his kind of helmet crown. Again, I want some variation. I want to add and make him look a little more interesting than if I just painted him pure stone. And I think this kind of red color will make a wonderful base for that. And we're just gonna slide in it on. Perfect. And I might even take with this, because he's got a belt here, and I want to do something with that belt. I missed a little bit up here. Let's fix that. You know what? This kind of comes down like this. Let's coat that in as well. I'm going to do his belt yet another color, but while I still maybe have a little bit of this kind of red on, I'm going to come down here to my ground and just, again, we're going to try and make him look different. And he's got this whole ground thing, so I'm just going to put some color in there. I'm going to go with yet a different color for that. Again, we're doing some different things with this, because why not have fun? So as I'm continuing to base coat this, we're going to throw yet another color in. Why? Because we can, because this is fun. And we're going to go a little bit of sandstone. He's got this belt piece, so let's make that something interesting. Also, I want to then use this color for the base of the ground that he's on. Just to, again, I'm adding different color variations into a model that could really be boring. I mean, this is a stone golem, so basically a rock man standing on rock. He's got nothing else. He's not holding a weapon. He's not powered up with anything. He's really basic. And so what we need to do, or at least what I want to do, is I want to take and give some color and some variation to it to make interest. And I'm using here some sky smog. I feel a little bad kind of giving these colors out. And I said just because Reaper is working towards their Kickstarter of new paints. So not all these colors may be around by the time you watch this. But the nice thing is you can take this and just use it as a guide. Dark gray, brownish red, and kind of a very light tan. And play with it. And it's okay if you don't have the correct colors. This technique will work for it. So again, we're gonna pull that out, and I'm just gonna focus on his belt. And again, I'm not worrying too much about if some of this ends up elsewhere. The nice thing is all of this is adding in, again, colors. And what I'm hoping that you're seeing is that while I'm adding kind of all this unique color to him, I'm kind of keeping it a very certain kind of palette. You know, I'm aiming a bit warm with my colors, choosing things that are maybe a little bit more on the desaturated level. There we go. He's got this interesting buckle thing, and I think we should do something on the metallic side with that. So now I'm going to come in. This is going to be my base color. Even though he's kind of on a real kind of stone floor, I want to, again, play with this variation. And I don't know why, but this model has always kind of given me a little bit of like an Egyptian or desert feel just from the sculpt. And so kind of going with a sandstone or sand kind of base just seems fitting. Again, because it's stone that we're dealing with here, we're going to mix it up. Now, one thing I will say, you might notice that he is not on a base, he's just on the Reaper base. Part of that is I didn't know what I wanted to do for a base, and I really wanted to make this video. So we're just going with it. And it's something I can always take and rebase him later, because he is a original Bones model. So the nice thing about that is he's pretty easy to cut off of a base if I needed to. Now that I kind of have him done this way, and normally I wouldn't have started with such a dark gray, but part of the reason I did on this one is usually when you have a rock, you kind of have your individual pieces. And what I'm trying to think of this guy as, he's made up of rock. His pectoral muscle here is actually a rock. You know, all of these abs are rocks. All of these, they're individual rock. And so because of that, I want to add and have variation kind of within all of those, because that's what's going to help sell the rock illusion. So I started with this dark gray on this just as a unifier. But with the next bit of painting and such, much like rust, we're looking for variation. I'm not trying to keep it all similar. There are things I can do that'll bring them all together in the end. So I'm going to start with one of my favorite colors from Reaper Miniatures, and that's rainy gray. Rainy gray is just a great basic gray. It's not too, bright. It's not too dark. It's not too cold. It's not too warm. It's just a good classic gray. And so I often will use it for as my paint of choice. If I have to paint a gray, I will go rainy gray. I grab it so much. It's it's kind of crazy. But we're going to use this, and my goal here is I want to cover all these rocks and paint all these rocks. But this is the big thing. I don't necessarily want to give them a perfect coverage. I want to give them something a little different. So I gotta find myself the right brush. There we go. This is not a battle-worn brush. I don't know what it is. This is an old Reaper brush. And it's got just a little bit, if I come down here, so you can maybe see it, it's got a bit of a hooked tip. This is definitely a brush that's seen some action, but that's okay. I kind of want it a little imperfect because it'll keep me from being perfect as I do this. So we're going to come in and we're going to just start slapping down our rock. And much like anything else where I'm highlighting or things like that, I'm trying my best to cover everything, but leave some of the grooves and such still in that dark color. But I'm not worrying though about, am I getting perfect coverage on this? Because again, rocks are variant. They don't work or all look the same. So if it comes out a little on the splotchy side in places, that's okay. If my paint isn't 100% perfect, that's okay. Because we're going to add so many other little layers and such on here. He's not going to look quite the same by the time we're done. So, coming in, just painting all of these groups and grooves. And you can see I'm getting variation in my rock. And I'm not going to lie, it's going to look a little sloppy, but that's okay. I want it to look a little bit like that because when I do the other steps of this process, it's going to help bring everything together. And truthfully, part of that is we're going to hit it with a dark wash. And that's going to help knock down this bright rainy gray that we got rocking. So that's why I'm not worried about is it too bright or anything like that. Because I know we're going to hit it with a dark wash. That dark wash is going to take and do a lot of work to change our color and our tone. So it's okay if he's a little on the bright side right now. It's interesting with this particular sculpt is that like this whole like top part of the torso, very detailed, like a lot of rocky definition and muscles. You get down to the legs and they're not quite as quite as detailed in that way. It's just an interesting aspect of this particular sculpt. With his fingers here, you might notice I'm kind of filling in a little bit of the cracks, and it's kind of getting some of the cracks a little lost on this, and I'm losing my kind of dark crevice and such that I had. Again, I'm not worried about this. I'm starting off really bright, and I know for a fact that other parts of this process, just from having done it for so long, I am off camera. One of the things you'll notice as I'm tackling his hands here, it may look a lot like I'm losing kind of that original dark gray shade that I had on here with doing this. And I'm just not quite that worried about it because I've done this enough times that I know, as ugly as this is looking right now, and as much as I might lose some detail with this, it'll be okay. Sells a fairly ugly rock guy. The next, kind of the last little bit I have here is kind of his stone face. So I'm taking my time a little bit more here. His faces tend to be important. Sure, there's nothing that I have terribly missed, like this trap over here. Just getting that in a little bit. So at this point, yeah, he's looking pretty gnarly. And not really like what I think anybody would be like, ooh, that's a great paint job. I'm still okay with it. Still okay. I have him kind of in place. With my other colors, just to be honest, I kind of got those at a kind of a good start for stuff. But I am going to kind of hit them with a second coat. Trying to, again, bring up my brightness. Let's get to the fun part. So the fun part with this is we're going to add and introduce a lot of other colors, because again, rocks can be colorful. So what all do I have on my plate here? I have some lava orange. You might be going, wait, orange? Oh, probably for the red. No, it's going to go everywhere. And the reason I say that is because you can get a lot of different moss and lichen that are orange color, which if I said moss, you better believe I got a couple of greens here. I got jungle camo and olive green. So we got some greens. I even got a little red with this victory crimson. We got some browns here, everything from russet brown, woodland brown, and of course we got sky smog still here along with our sample. And here's the interesting thing. So we're going to introduce color to this. Now, when I did rust, I used foam and I dabbed it on. And foam can work really well for this too. However, here's the thing to think about. And that is with rock, a lot of times you get veins of minerals and such going through. You don't just get random splotches. And so I tend to like to use a brush and just kind of brush things on. I still might put some splotches and other things in, but I'm looking to do that. So I'm going to start with green, actually. I'm going to start with some jungle camo. Let's put some moss on this guy. And I have a dark green and a light green. And again, go out, look at all the different kind of rocks and images that you can find out there, because you will find all sorts of colors you probably didn't think could be in a rock. I mean, look at granite, for instance. There is so many different colors and variations of granite that you can find some stuff out there that you maybe didn't know. I could paint this guy pink. That wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, and there might even end up being some pink in here. We'll see where I get to. So I mixed up that green. I just have my brush, and I'm just gonna kind of think about maybe where I'd want some of this moss. I'm just gonna kind of texture it in. I'm not so much, again, worried about coverage and getting it everywhere, but trying to just hit different places on these rocks and just introduce that green color. And again, if I get a little sloppy here and there, that's okay. We're just trying to add variation to our rock guy. And again, you could use a technique like this if you're painting stone pillars or a cobblestone path or anything like that. I'm going to put kind of a lot of this moss color in just because I kind of like moss. And so just, it's fun to, like I said, you can see I'm just kind of shading in areas, making it look like patches where this goes. And I'm not worrying about going too heavy in any one place with this. Because again, I know that I'm going to do a wash. I know I have a highlight technique I'm going to bring in, and that will knock down some of this as well. So if I go a little heavy in places, it's okay, not the end of the world. We can recover. The most important thing in this is just to make, again, some interest. And I might not hit everything with the moss. I might choose different places or different areas to kind of work it in. And right now I'm just focusing in on the gray. It doesn't mean that, like, oh, I can't put this green moss on any of the other areas of it. I just have found in my years of painting, I tend to miss spots if I don't kind of just go over things in a certain order. So in this case, I am just slapping it on the gray. Got a little heavy on that foot. That'll be okay. And then I'll move on to some of the other colors. And I will even come in on my, like here on my sandstone. It's okay if I get a little green on there, even though it's going to end up slightly different. So I'm going to actually kind of use this like moss a little bit, try to focus on like kind of the whole like beard and mustache area a little bit, just to kind of, I don't know, add something to him. So yeah, just again trying to break it up, trying to make things look, but I've decided I need a little bit more on kind of these specks. Great. We got our first layer of moss on the green. I'm going to come in a couple of spots, even on this red. And again, because it's a different color that I'm using as a base, it's going to produce a different shading and such. And that's okay. You can see sometimes I do a little tapping. Sometimes I do more of a painting streak. Again, I'm trying to do something that is an organic. You know, moss is kind of an organic. Moss is an organic material. Again, it's adding to the variation. I'm going to come in on his belt here in a couple of spots and just add some of that green. Come up onto his crown and again, just find those spots where, yeah, maybe I want a little green here or a little green there. That green is helping. Now let's move up a shade, olive green. And what I'm going to do with this is much like highlighting anything else. I'm going to try and go over the areas that I hit green in that last round, but I am not worrying about getting all of it. I want to leave some of the dark green. And if I hit some other spots that I didn't hit as green the first time around, that's okay. It's going to play off of the gray that's already there. And it's just going to, again, kind of apply into it. And so I'm just putting little touches in. I don't want anything that's really going to come off as like, oh, that's a line. I'm doing a lot of kind of tapping where I put that green. Maybe occasional streak or swirl. Just adding in, again, just that little bit of a touch of green and coloration to this sky. Now, with this, I will say, I said this is a quick kind of method, and you might be going, gosh, Howard, this is taking you a long time. Well, for one thing, I'm painting a whole rock dude. I could have focused in on just maybe one area of him. But that, that wouldn't have been quite as much fun. So, part of this, as I said, it's if I was doing just one rock on a base or something like that, you would maybe get a little bit different feel for how this is going and how quickly you could do this. And as I said, a lot of times because rocks are on like the bases of things, I will take and put my base color down, and then as I hit a color that's like, oh, that could be on a rock, I'll just do exactly like what I'm doing here and just kind of quickly kind of almost twitch painting, just letting my hand kind of twitch a little bit and slapping some paint down on our rock. Just hitting a few areas. Again, aiming for spots that I already kind of painted green. Or if I missed a spot, it's okay. Here we got a little kind of much, but that's okay. Mix it in. And it's providing that little highlight as we hit things like his face here. I'm going to, much like highlighting anything else, to come in even on kind of these other colors. And as you can see, I'm just kind of hitting a few spots everywhere. Not a whole lot. We're just trying to add, as I said, variation. The other thing that I kind of hope that this encourages some people to do is just move out of their, hey, this is how I do rock, and this is the only way I do rock. And I don't always do rock 100% like this either. But this is just trying to encourage people to think outside the box with some of their colors and that, because I see so many people who, again, as I said, rock I often see as the same kind of thing. I'm not gonna worry that I got that a little too much. Adding that in. Okay, so we got some rock color in there. Let's do a little bit of orange. Now with orange, where I have seen it, and I've even seen some yellow, and I could do yellow as well on here. I'm probably not going to go quite that crazy on this one, just for the sake of it. But you could do yellow as well. When I've seen orange kind of lichen and such, I don't see it like everywhere. It's not quite as much as I see like the green. And so I want to kind of keep this a little bit more subdued than I did with the green. And I might just choose a few kind of, as I said, spots here and there. I might not even do the same areas that I did the green. So I might choose a little bit in here and all that. And I'm just tapping it in, just aligning a little bit of texture on here and there. I want it to look a little, just growing in a little different. And it's okay if it's near the green. Maybe it's at a change of color. Maybe this particular part of his arm has hit more of this orange lichen. And so I'm just trying to add, again, some interesting variation on this. And again, you can do this on your tactical rocks or, just as something else. So just trying to break up what could really be a very boring model and make him interesting. That's the goal. Interest. And it's kind of fun. Putting on just, again, some of these spots. And you can see, as I kind of come back around here towards the front, you can see where some of this has already kind of dried out a little bit. And you can see that it's got that little bit darker color. And I grew up in the Black Hills, and so I saw a lot of kind of granite and granite spires and such, and orange and green, like moss and like this, was very common. And I think that's what kind of also helped kind of encourage me to like, you gotta make this stuff interesting. And why I like doing things like this. And I'm loving this. I got one foot that's got a lot more moss on it than the other. That's okay. It's all just part of making things a little interesting. Just a little something to make it a little different. And again, orange, even on this, I might even do a little bit more on this red. So this lava orange, because it's going to be much brighter on this. So applying a little bit more on it will help, I think, add some color and texture to it. It's kind of like doing the same we'll do some brown on the sandstone, and I think that'll help with that one as well. It's looking good. Looking good, looking fine, looking fly. Let's hit him with some brown. Yeah. I told you I was going to add a lot of color to him. Now with this, I'm starting with this darker brown, this russet brown. And truthfully, I'm going to aim, in this case, more for the cracks. Brown, in this case, is my dirt, because dirt ends up in rocks. And so I want to add some dirt to my rock guy. And so especially where I have a lot of these really dark veins, that's where I'm going to kind of come in and try to just maybe put a little dirt. I don't need to 100% cover all of it, and maybe where I've lost some, I'll put that. And again, it's okay also if I get a little bit on his arm and in different places. Hitting some of those veins to just add variation into there a little bit, but also at the same time doing like I've done with the others and adding just a little bit here and there to some of the rocks, because hey, maybe they're dirty for some reason. Maybe they just have a little bit of a brown streak to them. And it's okay. Again, we're going to come in and add some washes and things that are going to help make this really work. So again, not shooting for 100% perfection with this. Again, just adding color, variation. It's okay if it hits some of my green that I already did, or some of my orange. I'm also going to take some of my original kind of reddy brown color, just even find a few places to just streak in a little things here and there on some of these rocks. But I think we're getting to the point where he's ready for a wash. So I didn't use all the colors, but you know, again, use kind of your best judgment with some of this. And, you know, in this case, as I've kind of been going through here, I've kind of found, you know, hey, I've hit my happy medium with some of this. Some of this is looking really pretty good. I think we're ready. So let's find a wash. So the washes I absolutely used to love was by a company called Secret Weapon Miniature, and they did some just amazing washes, and I'm getting kind of down on those that I have. Their baby poop was really pretty good. It's a kind of green, and so the washes I'm going to use here, I have Game Color wash, I have their umber wash, and I have their blue wash, and I also have just a little bit of their black wash, just a little bit. We're gonna mix these, and the reason I'm mixing these, I want the umber, that's a dark brown, and so that'll help give me kind of a dark dirt brown color to this. The blue is going to hopefully add some cool to my stone, and the black is just to make sure everything's down. And I might not even add the black. I'm just kind of, I have it here. So start with the brown. I'm going to go pretty heavy on that umber wash. We're going to mix in our blue wash, adding that in. And I think just 3 drops of the black. Let's mix this up. And what I'm going for here, I don't really have a great way to show you here on camera, but if you can see my hand, see that? It's just looks kind of like a dark, kind of gray tone or wash to it. And that is just chef's kiss. Perfect for what we want with this. Before I do my wash, this guy's supposed to have a little bit of gold on him. At least I'm putting gold on him. I'm going to just quickly pull out, it's in here. I have some Reaper Cursed Gold, which is a good gold color, truthfully. Let's quickly, as quickly as this paint will allow me, let's quickly paint those few gold elements on so that it can also benefit from the wash. So we're going to come in on here, and I just want to hit this kind of centerpiece. Now he does have some little like rivet type things around his helmet, and I haven't decided if I'm jeweling those out or what, but we'll go. Okay, so I got my nice dark wash here. Soup some up on my brush, and when I wash, I like to always kind of start at the top and just work my way down. Now, the part of why I like this wash being good in dark is with some of this bright color stuff, it's going to knock it down, but I went really bright. I once had a set of stones, and I did the same method on, but I started with a much darker gray tone to it. And what ended up happening was my stones, by the time I was done with the process, ended up really dark. They looked kind of cool. Like they fit like a very grim setting. But yeah, it got really dark. And what I kind of learned from that is if you start with your rock being just kind of obnoxiously bright, when you hit it with a really dark wash, like this has kind of become, it will, it knocks it back, but in kind of a good way. And it's also going to make all of those colors that you put on there blend in a way that just will make it feel kind of natural and such. So just applying this wash, applying it everywhere over this base I got going. Now the only downside to doing a wash is you have to wait for it to dry. Make it a little bit more of its head space. So I'm going to take a break, step away as this bad boy dries, and then I'll come back and finish out this video with my kind of last step. But overall, I'm pretty happy with him. All right. So I said I'd be back in a little bit, but as you can tell by my window, it's now daytime. One of those things got done with recording at night. I finally looked at my phone and went, oh my gosh, it's later than I expected. I should go to bed. So hence why the gap. But let's take a look at this guy now that our wash has dried, and I think he is looking fantastic. We got rock that looks just very much like it's rock. He's got colors, he's got variation to it, and it kind of all has blended in. There's a couple of spots, like right here on his foot, where I think the wash got a little heavy, and so it kind of erased some detail. And we're kind of, you know, we have some spots here on the leg that definitely could be just a wee bit better and need some touch up. But that's okay, because we have the next step in this process. That's kind of my last step. And that is, we're going to do a highlight. I should also point out, just because like I looked at that, but I also like what it did here with his tactic kilt and then his belt. He looks very grimy and organic, like he's been standing still for a while. So really what I have left to do on this guy is we need to highlight this stuff. I want to give him like actual eyes, but I have to figure out what kind of color I want with that. And then I have these kind of little studs around the top, and I need to do something with those. And I'm thinking I might make them little gems, because this guy he screams like palace guard to me. He's just kind of got that kind of look about it. So anyway, the first thing we got to do is we got to highlight him up a little bit. And to that, I'm just going back to my basic color, the rainy gray. If you're wondering what the stuff is on my thumb, I fixed a loom for my wife that my son accidentally snapped. It was a crocheting loom. And so I have a little glue on my fingers because I was using a glue that takes a little bit longer to dry, and I was having problems like keeping the tension on it just right to hold it in place, and it was a mess. Anyway, a little too much detail. So yeah, I'm gonna take my rainy gray, and what I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna dry brush for a highlight. If you prefer an edge highlight, you could go through and edge highlight all of this. For me, I want that kind of dusty, dirty look that you can get with a dry brush. I don't want a perfect edge highlight on this. Some of my rainy gray on my brush, just to give it a nice light coating, and we're going to just kind of come in and dry brush. And what this does, especially with a good sculpt like this, is it's going to catch the edges and all of that. It's going to bring it back a little bit. If there are spots where too much of the gray got erased by the wash or by the moss and other colors I added, this is going to bring it back a little. So like his neck here got a little dark. We're just going to get that looking good. And I'm not doing a real heavy dry brush with this. I'm not really trying to lay down a ton of color. I'm just wanting to loosely highlight this up a little bit and give it just that little bit of flare and such that I feel like it needs. And I'm okay with it being a little streaky. Rocks have kind of streaks and such. So just trying my best to just highlight, get his face here a little bit. He's looking good. When you look at him up close, you can see some of that color and variation. It hasn't all gone away. Some spots are a little bit darker and such. That's fine. But I think he looks good. He's got some real kind of character. And that dusty dry brush look, to me, adds greatly to the rock feel of this. I'm moving my water. I know I'm almost through this video, and I need to do. So we've done that one. That's great. I'm also going to dry brush now his helmet and his helmet and his skirt. Give those kind of that same treatment. I usually don't like to end my highlight on a dry brush, just because dry brushing is a little on that imperfection side. But again, with something like this where I'm dealing with a natural kind of thing, I totally think it's the thing to do. And here, again, I'm going to kind of go towards the curve of the skirt. I want to pick up those edges that are on it. Bump to the camera. That's not bad. And I'm just trying to, again, add in a little bit back of that original color to allow all of that great work we did to still shine through. But we want him to feel just a little bit. It doesn't look like much. It's fairly subtle. But if you compare his tactikilt to his helmet up here, you can see this is brighter. Just the colors pop just a little bit more, where his helmet is still kind of dark and drab. So it's just kind of countering my wash, but that wash really helped tone down everything. And now he's got kind of a nice helmet of hair. Now, for some of the things that are a little bit more detailed, like his bracers here and his belt, for those, I can't really get in there and really dry brush. So going back to just a regular brush, I'm not going to want a lot of paint on because I'm not trying to erase everything. But I'm going to kind of come in and just find the spots that feel like I could use a highlight. Just kind of highlight some of the original color back in. Like you can see here on the back part of this bracer, it went really dark and kind of erased everything. That's okay. Not doing a perfect coverage here because I still want some of that darkness, but just slapping back in some of that. Now you can see also just on this, because I want the skirt to pop just a little bit more, I'm kind of coming in just slightly edge highlighting a little bit. And I don't mind that some of this got really kind of almost erased by my wash and that darkness. One of the historic sites I manage has a lot of sandstone features, and it gets some real kind of darky moss and dirt and grit on it. And so having seen that, I'm kind of, again, okay with maybe having some of this not, again, look perfect. He's a stone guy. He should not be perfect. He's looking pretty good. Let's do the belt. And then with that ground, if you notice his ground now is really messy. Again, we'll dry brush on this sky smog, and that should hopefully bring everything together. Putting a little sky smog. I put a little too much on my palette. That's okay. And again, with my brush here, I'm just going to kind of edge in kind of a highlight. But I'm also going to look for things like there's a streak here. Great. Let's kind of include some of that. And I'm going to try and add just a little bit here and there of the others. And if it gets a little too much, a little bit of dab. And if I do have a mistake like I did just kind of right there, I can easily kind of come back and fix some of that. I can hit it with another wash. I could help use some other colors, but yeah, we're just kind of, again, putting it in. So just kind of by bringing that back in a little bit more, we kind of fixed our little belt mistake. But even if I feel like, oh gosh, this line that I kind of hit right in here isn't great, I can take a little bit of my my red color and let's just throw that down. Grab a little sky smog. Kind of just mix the two a little bit. have kind of a very nice wet brush, and we're just going to kind of like that. And we're just going to kind of blend it in a little bit. And a little bit of wet blending and such, adding in texture, but at the same time keeping it interesting. And just using my finger to kind of knock some of it away. All right, looks good. Last bit. So let's hit some final touches on this guy. He definitely needs some gold highlights. So once again, bringing out my cursed gold, which again is kind of bright, but I think that's okay. And with this, I'm just going to be just kind of gentle. I don't want a lot on. I just want to brighten up my gold in a few kind of key highlight places. I want to erase everything that I've done with the wash and that. Just kind of make my gold sing a little bit more again. So as you can see, even on these kind of wristband things, I'm just not overdoing it. I'm just taking it kind of easy. I don't necessarily want him super shiny, but I want the gold to matter just a little bit. Like up here on his ears, it got just a little too dark. So let's bring it back a little bit. Not erasing it, leaving some dark spots and all of that to it, because that's what, again, adds some nice visual interest to it. Just kind of hitting a few of those key spots. So he's looking good. Let's deal with those, what I'm calling gemstones. I don't know if they're actually gemstones, but they go around his kind of head and his crown. And so I'm going to use a little squag green. It's just a nice kind of bright green. I want it to stand out from the moss. The reason I'm going green is because since I went red for like his crown and the gold, I think that the green will provide a nice contrast color. And because I didn't go bright red, I'm avoiding that Christmas kind of color that you might, or coloration that you might kind of get. So with these jewels, just going to come in and just help kind of pick them out. I'm going to see how those dry. As I've kind of done this, I feel a bit like it's a bit too bright, and I might need to go kind of a darker green and then highlight up to this. This doesn't mean part of it's experimenting. I don't do everything right the first time. But I do like the contrast of it. It just might need a little bit darker base and a little bit. But that's okay if I did that. It's light, covering it with dark is kind of going to be hard. Eyes. This guy needs some eyes. So I'm going to bring in spectral white. One of my favorite Reaper colors, because it's white, but it's actually this very, 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 on my floor, it's a very desaturated purple. So it is white, but it's got this little kind of light purple tone to it. And I forget who, one of the tips I got early in my kind of painting career was when you do white, a lot of people, we go straight to pure white. Well, even eyes are not pure white. They have a variety of colors and such to them. And so a lot of times you should go with something that's not white, that has a slight coloration to it. And so I have found I love that spectral white. Some of the bone colors tend to be really good. Bleached linen I use a lot. just because it has kind of a yellowish tone to it, and that just kind of works. Okay, so I'm using a very fine brush, and I'm coming in, and I'm just gonna use nice, gentle movements. Thankfully, to that dark wash that settled in the eye crevices, it shaded it in. I'm pushing my own model off as I try to get it just right. He's got some nice eyes. And I think what I'm going to do, as I look at him, and he's nearly done, at least to where I think he's going to be, I think I'm going to darken these and then kind of come back in with that green. So I'm gonna pull out some phthalo green, and then I'm gonna kind of highlight it with that bright green again. But then I'm gonna take that bright green, I'm gonna really water it down, kind of get it into that glaze, and we'll do a little object source lighting, glowing eye thing, just to, again, things that I have learned. And I learned this again from somebody and from reading blogs and videos. With most of our models, we want the focus to be the face. That's kind of what we as humans tend to look for. And so you want to do things that draw attention to the face region and less about here. This doesn't matter, you know. You probably don't care that I'm wearing a Colorado Avalanche shirt unless you're a Colorado Avalanche fan, or, you know, you're just kind of curious. But my face is what draws you in. And so I want to do that same thing with him. I want that kind of to draw. And so that's why we did things like on the crown, that little gold piece that's up there, because that'll help bring people's attention to it. Glowing eyes will bring stuff to it. It'll hopefully snag people's attention. So using this kind of phthalo green, which is kind of a bluish green. It's one of the Reaper colors I don't think they put out all the time. And so it's kind of hard to get. But any dark green would work if you were painting your own version of this figure. And again, I'm choosing that versus hitting like a moss green or a dark forest green, because that would, I think, hit with that moss too much and confuse people's intentions on this. So by using this phthalo green, which is this nice different color, you can see it's very different. There is still some green and such within him in places, but it kind of fits all together with it. I like it. He's looking just great. His base is fairly generic for what he is. I'm okay with it. So now we'll come in. We're just going to use that original bright green, and we're just going to kind of come in along the top. Voila. All right, let's do a little lighting. So I have my squad green that I'm using, and we're just going to take, and I'm going to just kind of overload it with some water and kind of make myself just a glaze. I'm going to stick with my detailed brush just so that I have plenty of control. I scoop that up. I'm going to try and knock off quite a bit off my hand, and then just kind of come in. Just, again, kind of glaze into that. those eyes. The white part should stay up a little bit. And when I do a glaze kind of like this, I try to actually really kind of keep an eye on it so that I don't have any pooling or anything like that. I'm wanting, as I said, I want just that hint that, hey, there's something more to this guy. And there's a bit of magic to him. I'm pretty happy with that. I have myself a pretty cool stone golem. I'll take some nice photos, put those up at this part of the video so you can kind of see him in his full glory. Because I still need to apply some. I always like to apply a matte varnish to them, so I'm going to do that, and then I'll put some pictures up. So hey, if you made it all the way through this video, thanks. I always appreciate people who take the time to watch these, and hopefully you maybe learned something. Do you have a way that you like to paint stone? Let me know in the comments down below. I love hearing how other people tackle these things, because only by sharing the knowledge we have can we further and help others. I know for myself, at one point I was a beginning painter and I had to learn how to do all of this, and sometimes the ways that I made the most advancement was thanks to people sharing their knowledge and helping me to learn. So that's why I try and give back. So hopefully you maybe learned something. If you have something to share, put it down in the comments. If you liked it and you feel kind enough to give a like and a subscribe, hey, thanks. I greatly appreciate it. It's not mandatory, but I do like seeing this channel grow a little bit. It's fun for me, especially since this is a small kind of hobby YouTube channel. It's fun. And with that, hopefully we'll catch you all back down here in the cave again next time. Good morning, everybody.